Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Excuse my throat, bad throat this morning. Maybe it's good news that I don't speak too much today. First of all, I want to thank our friends at the UAE, our partners at the UAE, this wonderful country that is breaking ground on many fronts, including aerospace and space. Probably one of the most heartening things today, this morning, is to see Buzz again, the person I saw in 1969, I dare to say as a student, a young student in high school, and I was one of those lucky people. Those are the things that come with being old enough, the few things that come with being old enough to have literally sat in front of a black and white TV with so many children and so many young men and women and literally watch people land on the moon. The most amazing thing, the most wonderful thing that happens in a human life, to see something like that happen. And to see Buzz practically almost every year as a friend and as a mentor and as a great person that keeps pushing the envelope. I remember last year when I was in Los Angeles, Buzz and I got in touch, and I said, Buzz, I have my children with me here today, and especially my 12-year-old daughter. She's now 12, which was 11-year-old daughter then, Hala, who's very enthusiastic. She's an avid pilot like me and loves adventure. And I told her about Buzz. I said, Buzz, would you come over and have lunch or breakfast? And he came for breakfast, of course. And I told Hala that Buzz is coming, and we're going to have breakfast with the man who landed on the moon. She practically told all her friends that Buzz Lightyear is coming for breakfast. And I dare to say that it was a beautiful breakfast, very long breakfast. So this morning I was really feeling that Buzz would really go on talking about his dreams and passions. I believe that keep him healthy and alive, and for many years to go. Buzz Lightyear probably lives at the speed of light. We all know if you live at the speed of light, you never age. Every year I see Buzz, he's younger, more vibrant. His son gets older, slower. Buzz gets faster and younger. Second heartwarming thing that happened this morning is my friend Mohammed Hababi, this wonderful, optimistic person that I enjoy seeing every time, who told me today, and I don't know whether to be sort of sad about this or happy about this. He said, when I saw you go to space some 31 years ago now, that was the inspiration for him to connect to this new industry. This year, this last summer actually, last fall, we celebrated our 30th years of space, inspiration, and ambition for our country and for this part of the world. And we did that right under the nose of the Discovery, our space shuttle, which can be actually visited and viewed at the Smithsonian Institute Aerospace New Center near the airport at Washington, at the Dallas airport, Washington, D.C. So I do invite you to visit, because when I went to visit for the first time, I was accompanied by the head of NASA, Charlie Bolden, who just happened to be one of the people that I met 30 years ago, who became a friend, came to our house all the time. His wife was a wonderful lady, who still is a wonderful lady, who came to our house and eventually once in a while cooked for us. So when we went to visit, and I took a look at the space shuttle, a very, very rough looking machine. I am a pilot, I'm a practicing pilot. I came here flying a Gulfstream, 10,000 hours of flying time. My passion is flying, and if I didn't fly, I'd probably age a year. Each day I didn't fly. But when I saw the space shuttle, and it really was a messy looking machine, I said, you know, the good thing is that it didn't take us to literally see the space shuttle up close before the mission. Otherwise, many of us would probably have not flown. I would not fly an airplane that looks like the space shuttle in the sense of the way it's been banged up through time. Having said that, I think our space mission was so inspirational, and to me, probably this is the most important byproduct. What Mohammed said today, what I witnessed with my own eyes, is that when we finished the space mission, and I keep saying to people, it wasn't really about us. The moon astronauts, when they came, we watched them parade. We had our own parades coming through Saudi Arabia, and even in the Arab world. I was one of the very fortunate people to have visited all the countries of the Arab world, except one. And I've met some very inspiring people, especially Sheikh Zayed, whom I really regard as a man of vision, a man of the future, a man that comes from the desert, but his head literally lives on the planets. A man who brought this wonderful country, this great country, together, but not only bringing a country together, which is not the most difficult thing, but to bring a country together, keep it together, and keep it looking forward. And having said that, at the Gulf area, and I come from Saudi Arabia, this is probably the magic number. People always wonder, and we do live in a very turbulent world, especially in the Arab world today. Very unfortunate, and I did say a while ago that not only the Arab world is the loser from the conflict that's happening in the Arab world, the fragmentation of people, and the young people that are immigrating by the hundreds and the thousands every day, but I think the rest of the world is also a loser. This part of the world is where people ventured into space, at least with their minds and their sciences. This part of the world has always enriched humanity and has a great role to play in the future of humanity. And losing the people of the Arab world, losing the smart, diligent people of value of the Arab world in a way that we see today is really disastrous, not just for the Arab world, but it is really disastrous for the rest of the world and the rest of humanity. What keeps our countries in this region, like Saudi Arabia and UAE, coherent, what keeps people moving forward in spite of the adverse conditions, to say the least, that we live in today, with all the challenges that go on, wars, terrorism, and lack of resources, and economic challenges today, is that these countries were created on the premise of bringing people together, not divide and conquer. And what happened in the Arab world with the early revolutions, so-called revolutions, I think they were not revolutions in the sense of revolutions that will energize and ignite futuristic countries, countries that are stable and prosperous. But they were revolutions that really pretended to be toppling monarchies or political systems, but literally they were revolutions against the people of those countries. And when the lid was lifted, I believe, in what's so-called the Arab Spring, I called it the Arab Flood. People of the desert, where it really rains and pours, we call it a flood. The spring comes way later, and we're still waiting for the Arab Spring to come. These countries of ours, our countries, were countries that really started with the premise of bringing people together and building a future together. And that's why they today prosper and face all these amazing challenges. Sometimes when I look at the news, and I do that at minimum today, I begin to think it's not a bad idea to go to Mars much earlier. Sometimes you want to be in Mars. But we look at the future. Saudi Arabia has invested heavily. When we submitted our report on the space mission, when we went to the space mission, and there's a long story, it's published in my memoirs on our website, I think somebody wrote it for me, ksaspace.org. I put a lot of information in that website, my friends did, my colleagues, but I think one of the most important things, when we submitted a report, we said we should not make this into just a media bubble. We've had an amazing experience starting from the whole process of negotiating and to going into the space shuttle, something that was offered to countries that launched satellites, and Saudi Arabia was put forth because we were really the founders, more or less, the largest founders of the Arab Satellite Organization, and we were practically at that time the most advanced in space technology in the sense of communications and so on. So when we went to NASA for our flight tests and medical checkups and so on as a group, sort of a secret group, I remember one day coming to Clear Lake, Buzz knows where that is, and we flew all the way from Saudi with one stop in London. We arrived at 2 o'clock in the morning. We're really very tired, totally worked out. Young people that are really just, but we were very tired. They took us to a meeting room in the hotel, and you know, in the US, if somebody launches a nuclear weapon, someone will say, bring the coffee machine. So they walked us into a room with a coffee machine, with cookies and sandwiches, 2 o'clock in the morning, and they gave us the briefing, and they said, tomorrow we'll pick you up at 5 in the morning. So by the time we went to bed, and woke up 2 or 3 hours later, and I think it was intentional to see what we're made of. It took us to the medical center, 2 days of testing, starting early morning until probably sunset. And during those days, we all said to each other that we really discovered parts of our body and ourselves that we never really knew they existed. I mean, it was really tough going through 2 days of a drill of medical checkups and so on. But the last day, when that was all done, and we were not really allowed to eat or really, be comfortable, they took us to the psychological evaluation. Just anecdotally, I sat down in practically a dark room with a small light. This gentleman was sitting there eating a Mars bar. Mars, maybe intentional. And I was really hungry, and I wanted him, like we do here in our part of the world, you always tell people, you give them. You want coffee, you want dates. But the man was just eating, he has his feet on his desk, which I did too. And then he went through a 2-hour maybe of psychological drill, trying to find out a lot of things. And when we finished, he said, young man, you can leave now. And I said, are you sure I can speak off the record? And he said, yes. I said, what are you looking for when you do this psychological drill? He said, well, we're looking for people that are stable, quote stable, astronauts and stable don't really correlate very much. Stable, people that can work together in diversity, people that can really not panic when you have, this was a dangerous mission. Our mission was the 18th mission. The 25th mission blew up, which is the first accident, the Challenger. Our mission had the same problems. We launched in the summer. We were supposed to launch in the winter. The other shuttle, unfortunately, launched in the winter and had the same problems because of the freezing issue. So he said, we're looking for people. So I said, practically, you're looking for people who are not crazy. He said, more or less. I said, you think somebody is going to sit on top of 2 million pounds of thrust in a ship that's got more than 3 million parts made by 25 different countries, totally experimental at that stage, and you think they're not crazy? So he said, more or less. We had a very successful mission. King Fahd, God bless his soul, a great man, a great visionary. When I sat with him the first time, and he was really not all for me going on the space mission, for many reasons. But when we sat as a group, he looked at us and he said, we want you to work hard and represent your country and our part of the world. And in 1985, a lot of politics was happening here, just like today. Always there is the political issues. And King Fahd said to us, we want you to be diligent, but we want you to come back with something. Not just artifacts which we flew with us, but come back with something. And so we literally assembled a science team. People, this is 30 years ago, from the King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals, from other institutions in Saudi, and went after some Saudi students who were actually studying rocketry and aerospace in the US. One of them, my colleague, Turki bin Hamad bin Saud, who's now the standing minister in charge of the King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, KAXT. If you want to learn more about the great things KAXT has been doing, the two people that have started this process, Dr. Mohammed Suwail, who's our minister now of Communication and Technology, who was actually manning our office at NASA 30 years ago, and Prince Turki, who was a student, a research student that now is really in the forefront of the space program. The Saudi space program, I will not bore you too much about talking about it in the sense of details. It's all in my presentation and in the website of KAXT. But this has been a very diligent, very methodical, building up program, more or less like what Buzz is suggesting. The small steps towards a larger step. We are now the largest manufacturer of satellites in the Arab world. We have agreements, active agreements, with NASA, with the Russian Space Agency, with the Japanese Space Agency, with all the other space agencies. The most important thing that happened, though, are the generations of young people. And I think one of the most wonderful things I heard today, that you did invite some of the young people here in the AOE to look forward to join the movement towards making space beneficial for mankind. I have to say, though, today I wanted to venture into the future. I think Buzz covered pretty much of that. But I think, of course, I will very much and totally abstain from trying to predict the American elections like Khaldun did yesterday, or give my opinion to that fact. But I want to say that my friend Richard Branson, good friend, dear friend, when he came to Saudi Arabia, he does come to Saudi Arabia once in a while, and I was watching Brian, and I think Brian, I insist that Brian flies that thing, because Brian has a resemblance to Superman, and I think flying a spaceship like that will give him the title of super pilot. So I would give anything today, as a government employee, very busy with what's happening in our country today. I'll give anything to take Brian's job. Swap jobs, if you like. When Richard Branson asked me, he said, would you like to fly in the spaceship, in the Galactic? And I did visit the Galactic and so on, before the accident, the unfortunate accident that happened. And I said, yeah, I'd like to fly, but I have two conditions. I don't want to be flying as a pilot. I want to fly as a crew member. Second is I want to fly for free. And that's when I lost Richard. I want to thank you very much for inviting us today. We are today working together, and I've been instructed, and we've always been instructed, by our own King Salman, who's a visionary, who actually, being my father, of course, in those days also, has been very close to the development of how I got into this mission, all the intricacies that are mentioned in my memoirs. They're in Arabic, but you could probably Google Translate. But I want to give also a great thanks in this sense to my mother, who passed away in 2011. And I remember in 1974, 73, but I remember in 1969, my last anecdotal story. I've always seen my father, two times he volunteered to defend our country. Once to defend Egypt against the triad invasion by 3 countries of the Suez Canal, and once to defend against Egypt in the invasion of Yemen, bring us back to Yemen again. And I've always really seen the Saudi soldiers walking around the Saudi streets on their weekend. They were obliged to wear uniforms so to attract more people to join the military. And I wanted to be a soldier. And so in 1969, I went with my father and my older late brother Fahad, who was also an inspirational person for me, will ever be also. And I saw the first graduation of the King Faisal, King of Saudi Arabia, was attending the first graduation of the Royal Air Force Academy. And I tell the young people, and this is really my talk to the young people of the Emirate people, that your dreams sometimes will not come in immediately. And that sometimes you just have to let time passes, and you'll never know where you'll end up, or when will you meet your dream again. Almost like spaceships meeting in space, correlating all the calculations and amazing stuff that has to happen. So you have ships meeting in space, ships meeting stars and planets. I met my stars and planets in 1969, and we finished the graduation event, and I was really completely taken by these amazing fighter jets and pilots. So I got into the car, put my hands on the front seat, my father was sitting in the front, and I said, sir, I want to quit school, and I want to be a pilot. And he stopped for a minute and he said, you know, my dream was always to be a soldier. He said that. But I got into this job as governor of Riyadh when he was 18 or 19 or 20, and I lost my dream. So maybe you can do that, but can't quit school. You can finish your middle school, and then the military college was actually accepting kids from middle school to finish high school. And then he said, you can go to the Air Force Academy and spend 2 years. Those years was 2 years to graduate as a pilot. You can imagine, maybe the next week, I had no sleep. There was no Twitter, there was no WhatsApp. So I had to run around telling people everywhere. I was a horseback, I loved horseback riding in the desert. I raised my own falcons and my hunting dogs. We were living in modern life. But I loved everything that I did in adventure, but that was the thing that took over my mind. Unfortunately, within months, I got hit by a very rare virus that disabled my joints, the rest of my body literally, and those dreams came to an end. I could not do any sport, which I liked, could not ride horses, and of course could not go to a military college until I was 21. So that was a very tough year for a young man to lose a dream. And I'm saying that to the young people here. That's in 1969. Went back, this is the year you flew. I never made that correlation actually, landing on the moon and the Air Force Academy. In 1985, or in the 70s, mid-70s, I decided to learn how to fly. And I spoke to my mother and my father, and my mother completely refused. She said, no way. Those days, people did not. She said, I don't want you in an airplane. I don't want to lose you, and this sort of thing. And I talked to my father, and I said, I really want to fly. I want to go to the States and learn, go to college, I want to fly. He said, well, go ahead and do it, and one day she'll be convinced. In 1985, the story of the space mission, went to space. I was already, by then, airline transport pilot. I probably had 5,000, 6,000 hours of flying time. When we were nominated, at least to submit our names, I was really afraid that my mother, who didn't want me to fly, now I'm going to tell her I want to go on a spaceship. And so I employed my brother Fahad, older brother, very wise, very keen man whom I will ever miss, and my other brother Ahmed, the two brothers that I grew up with. So I came to Fahad and I said, try to get my mother to let me do this, before I speak to anyone else, because she was my life, really. And he went to her, and this is published in a newspaper, in an interview with her. And she turned to him, she said, Godspeed, no problem. Tell him to put his name in, and I'm going to pray for him. So when Fahad told me, I said, you sure she said this? Said, yeah. So I went to her, and she said, yeah. And I said, why did you refuse in 74, 73, 74, that I fly a small single-engine airplane? And now I'm going to go on a space shuttle that eventually, maybe, will have basically everybody was predicting the accidents and the blow-ups and the risk. She said, because then you were doing it for yourself. This is you're doing it for your country. Like all the soldiers today that are defending their countries or going places for their country, like Buzz did. So that really something was amazing. So in 1985, we fly the space mission and all the story that goes with it. And one of the newspapers has a title that said, I'm orbiting Earth and my mother is orbiting the Kaaba in Mecca. Which is true, actually. She was there just praying. But when we came back, this is really the story now connected to 69. For the young people here, ambitious and really want things to happen right now and today. Some things will not happen in your own timing. The stars have to meet or collide eventually in the future. We're in the airplane, we land and look out of the window, and King Fahad and everybody the who's who in Saudi Arabia was meeting us. Not me or my backup, my friend Sam, but also the science team. It was a holistic mission. Even the receptions we got in the country, we never thought of those as receptions for people. They were receptions for a period of time. We just got our heads out of a massive development period in Saudi Arabia. It started in the 70s with the rise of the oil prices, which we all hope we'll do that again this time. And people literally saw development as basically roads and factories and hospitals, never really see the investment that happened in people in Saudi. So probably the first time people got stunned that our own people are now at NASA, and we did participate in everything, science, programs, got into all the institutions. NASA gave us a green card. Green card, this is a story to be told. We got in everywhere, we went everywhere. My French colleague, Patrick Baudry, didn't get the same green card. And that was a story Buzz probably will tell you about some other time. In 1985, when we landed and the airport was full of people, the first person to come on the flight was my boss, the Minister of Communication, Mr. Ali Shah, is still alive. And he shook hands with me and told me all the nice words somebody would tell his employee. And he said, something that blew me away. He said, I want to tell you today, King Fahad issued a royal decree appointing you an officer in the Royal Saudi Air Force. Something I wanted to do in 1969. He saved me a lot of the headache from having to build up from a student pilot and all that. I became exactly what I wanted to do in '69. An Air Force officer. I went into Air Force training and conversion program in Riyadh, the King Faisal Academy, the same place where I saw my dream come true and visit. And then I was a member of the, and met a lot of the UAE pilots flying F-15s and Hawks in the first Gulf War, the Desert Storm. My point is, people like Buzz bring inspiration to all of us. When I was very lucky to meet the 3 crew members of the Apollo 11. Very lucky to meet hundreds of astronauts and cosmonauts who have flown into space, and the last convention we had was in Saudi Arabia the last 4 years. Today I mentioned to Mohammed, let's have one of those conventions here. UAE deserves to have Association of Space Explorers Convention, bring all the astronauts and cosmonauts to this great country to support and to push the dream forward of going to Mars. And I salute Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed and Sheikh Khalifa first, and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, and Sheikh Mohammed Maktoum for literally keeping the vision alive in this amazingly complex world that we live in today, but still keeping young people focused on the good things that can happen in the future and not just getting mired with what the news brings every day. Thank you very much.